Well, now we got everyone hungry, thinking they're going to eat, and you have to listen to me. But JR, all of the talks have been just great today, and I hope you've learned some meaningful information. JR was so on in describing how HR looks for people and how some executive search people look for people. But my question to you would be, how does that make you feel? Does that feel good to you? What kind of job are you looking for?
In the security aspects.
Security? What about you?
Graphic design.
Drafting?
Or graphic design.
Oh, photographic design. Okay. Well, so as I say that I agree with everything that you learned. Unfortunately, sometimes it's a little difficult to navigate within those guidelines. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned in the last 10 years is how employers have changed, but we as job hunters really haven't changed. And I can't begin to emphasize and reinforce enough everything you've learned about LinkedIn and finding a job online. But I'm going to take you down a whole different path now, and we're going to talk about other ways to find a job and what it takes to find, what you're going to have to do. Everything that we've pretty well talked about today, with the exception of maybe Rita, talked about body language and had some good points. I think that if you're going to compete in this field and if you're looking for a job locally, I feel the best way to find a job is go knock on the employer's door and tell them you want to go to work for them. Now that's a matter of your comfort level, and it takes some work. But no matter how you approach your job search, it's a lot of work. And it should be fun work. It's preparation. There's been a lot of talk about personal branding, and Jeff is just great at that. And I think that as you're developing your personal brand, it's important that you know really what your brand is. Usually we define our brand as far as work is concerned by our job title. I mean, we think about the job title that we've had or the degree that we have, and that's who we are when it comes to work. Not necessarily true. How many of you, when you got out of school, ended up with a job you thought you would have? And you got exactly what you wanted?
Maybe not exactly what I wanted.
Yeah. And then what happens is you start down that path, it's kind of like going into the rabbit hole. The longer you do what you ended up doing, the more you're identified with that, and the farther you're getting away from what you'd hoped to do. So I suggest if you're really going to if you're in the middle of a job search, I would suggest that you really take your own personal inventory and go back and think about where you want to work, think about what you're qualified to do. And I believe strongly there are obviously some jobs. If you're an engineer and you're going to be in the engineering game, then you've got to emphasize all of those skills. If you've been an engineer all your life and you don't want to be an engineer anymore, you go, God only gives me one life, and I've done this for 25 years, I think I'd like to do something else, then you have to kind of reinvent yourself. And you have to look at all of the things that you did as an engineer that went along with the program. And that could be hiring and training people. It could be motivating people. It could be running teams. It could be project management outside of the exact engineering definition. So you have all of these other things that you do that support your job description that many times are not in your job description. And you need to really identify with those. You really need to know what those things are, because it gives you a much broader search when you're looking for something that you want to do. So you want to be into security. What kind of security?
Operations.
Operations? Okay, and so what would that entail?
I want to be more the management of the security rather than being standing at a security at a door.
Okay, so you're talking about physical security, not cyber security.
Right.
Okay. So then, if you don't want to be the person at the door, if you want to be more operations and overt, I think you need to. Your first instinct will probably be to emphasize your security experience as relates to being in a position providing security rather than operations. So you're going to have to go in and look at all of the different things that you've done with your career, managing other people, being tactical, solving problems, so that when you get your resume right, you get your LinkedIn posting right, when you go in for an interview, you can emphasize all of those things that get you the job you want rather than getting that job you don't want, which is standing security, being at the security checkpoint. So that's true of almost any job that you're looking for. And there are so many things that all of us can do that we don't think about. We sometimes get so caught up with what we're doing, we forget what we want to do. So do a little personal reflection. Go back and refresh your mind as to when you were in high school or when you were going to college, what it was you wanted to do, or even as you started your career, you'd see something that somebody else was doing and you say, I wish I could do that job. And start looking at what that job entails and look at your transferable skills and figure out how they match. Recruiters, for me, the frustrating thing about what JR had to say was, from my perspective, and I've been in an executive search, but from my perspective, HR departments have gotten lazy. I mean, they rely on the internet. They rely on using technology to find the people. 60 to 70% of why you hire someone has nothing to do with the skills, but how you interact with that person and how comfortable you are. It's about the other things they bring to the equation. In terms of a specific individual or a specific skill, you might be able to identify 500, 600, 700 people. But that doesn't get you very far. I mean, you need to know how they are with interpersonal skills. Is this somebody I want to spend 40 hours a week with? Is this somebody that I have to micromanage? Is this somebody that can go out and do it on their own? There are all these other things that go into the job search. So if you find a company that you would like to work for, and it's local, and sometimes even if it's not, but if you find a company that you would like to work for, and it has all the things that you thought you would like to do in life, then you need to prepare, identify exactly what it is, why you want to work there, prepare as all of the things as to why you match and why you're a perfect person for that job. And then again, my approach to this thing is go knock on the door and ask to talk to the decision maker, whether they're looking for somebody or not. And you tell them you have identified them as a company you'd like to work for. Here are the reasons why, and here are the skills that you have. Well, we're not looking for anyone right now. But if you've prepared and you've matched your transferable skills and your hard skills to what they're using, many times they'll create a job for you. They'll create jobs for you. And so probably a whole different realm than a lot of you have thought about or worked within. But it just gives you a whole new chance on how to do things. Again, my not necessarily the right or wrong way, and there is no right or wrong way to look for a job, but my approach to resumes is it's something you leave behind, something that shouldn't precede you. Think about your resume and read your resume and see how well it describes you. It describes what you can do and it describes your work experience. Does it talk about all the other great things that you can make in terms of a contribution to a company? Yeah.
What you said this just happened last night. My son he's employed, but he's looking for a job in the field that he wants to be in, and he's got a pretty nice resume put together with his experience and everything, and he went and applied he had an interview. And he said towards the end of the interview, the person said, "You're not the right person for this job, you're just too energetic." And he thought that was just so strange at the time, and, you know, was kind of put off by it. But he said when he left the interview, he kind of looked around and he noticed that almost all of the people there were a little bit older than him. It was a very quiet and laid back kind of place. And he said, and I realized he's probably right, because he's very energetic, he's, I don't want to say loud, but he's enthusiastic. And I said, they did you a favor by being honest with you. 'Cause that
Absolutely.
probably would not have been a good fit for you. You'd have been miserable. They'd have probably been miserable. So I said, appreciate the honesty of the person that was interviewing you rather than being put off because it wasn't the right job for you.
However, one of the things that your son, probably with a little, maybe some, how old is your son?
He just turned 28 yesterday.
Okay, with a little bit of maturity in interviewing, he might say, "Oh, well, do you any of your vendors, or are there any other positions in your company that could use an energetic person?"
I said, well, you might have brought a little bit of life to the place too.
Yeah, absolutely. But we all forget this. We go out, we have to have money. We all need a job. We have to work. And so when we go in, we want the company to like us. We want them to hire us. In reality, you have to know enough about that company to know whether or not you want to work there. And during that interview process, 50% of it should be you interviewing them to see if you really want to work there. It's that simple. I mean, it's all right to keep going for a yes, we want you, and you can say, I'm sorry, but it's not a match for me. That always feels pretty good. But the point is, keep in mind, we get so caught up. I always compare, Jeff's heard this so many times, but I always compare looking for a job like dating. I mean, everyone, on a first date, everyone kind of misrepresents who they are and what they're about. It isn't until 5 or 6 dates that you get to know the person that probably didn't resemble anything like the person that you first interviewed or first met. So the same thing's on a job, and you need to ask them a lot of questions. And by asking the right questions, if you really work on asking the right questions, they'll take you down the road to whether or not you're a match or not. I mean, one of the things should be they want to know why you're there. The first thing, they want to know why you're there. And you have an idea as to why you're there. So you don't want to say, I'm looking for a job. You don't want to say the salary matches. Hopefully you have a good, solid reason as to why you want to interview with that company. And the best way to express that to them is, why are you here? Well, the job as I understand it, and you can have notes. Repeat the job description to them. That's written by HR, and they may not understand the job description themselves, depending on who you're interviewing with. And then ask the question, is there anything else that's involved in this job that isn't listed in the description? Well, when they give you that answer, when they tell you what else they're looking for besides the posted job description, now you can take all your transferable skills and the self-evaluation that you've done for yourself, and you can tell them how you're that person. Beyond just unloading your whole resume, unloading all your experience. Well, it's been said many times, you can disclose some experience that they've had a bad relationship with. They've had somebody that's had a certain skill set that didn't work out for them, so it just triggers a bad memory. So it's best to find out that the person that's interviewing you, when you say, is there anything else on top of the job description, they give it to you, and you can immediately identify how you worked it. The next question is, what does it take to move up in the company? The last person that had this job, if you're looking for a career and not a job, what happened? What happened to the last person that moved up from this position? What did they have that the other person didn't have, the other people didn't have? If they give you a good answer for that, again, you can immediately go to your own inventory of skills and identify with the experiences and the things that you've done that makes you that person that not only can handle the job, but can move up in the company. Because, again, Jeff mentioned, a couple of people have mentioned, they're looking for solutions. When they interview you, they're looking for a solution. They want somebody that's going to come in there and solve their problem. Their problem is I have a vacancy, but not only do they have a vacancy, they need that position filled. Hopefully you'll stay. They want you to be qualified. And when there's an opportunity to move up, they've got somebody internally that they can promote and not have to go to the outside. So when you keep emphasizing all of these things of how you're qualified or even a little overqualified, it gets to the point when you want to talk about salary. It's not about, geez, I wonder can they offer me I wonder if they're going to pay me what I want. They're going to be thinking in terms of can we afford them, and that's a good thing, because then the question immediately turns, if you've made a good impression, how can we not afford them? This candidate is a candidate we're looking for on steroids. This is a perfect candidate.
My question is, do you have to have, say they ask you, how much do you want? You don't have to tell them what you're wanting to start with.
What, salary?
Yeah, salary-wise.
Well, they'll push that, and I would just simply say I want a salary that would represent what this job description pays. Well, what did you do before this? Well, I don't know that it totally aligns with what you're looking for now, so it's kind of irrelevant. What I want is a competitive salary for the job description.
Okay.
I mean, I'm old enough that I get a little flip. I just say, as much as you'll give me.
Well, yeah.
Well, we'll give you 100. Well, that's not enough. I mean, yeah.
Is there ever a good time to bring up the salary?
No, kind of. Usually it's on the second interview. It's not the first interview. They'll always ask you that question because they want to screen you out. And I just think, I think another safe answer is, if you're currently employed, I'm currently employed, and I'm not here because of salary. I'm here because of opportunity. And therefore, I would expect to be paid competitively for what the position, And then you should have some number, not based on what you're currently earning necessarily, but on a base salary that you have to have so that you can be effective in your job and pay the rent and feed your kids and make your car payment and all of those things. It's called, I call it your nut. What's your bottom line? What do you have to have? So it's kind of what is the least amount of money you can work for? That means that if the job is right, I can do that because it'll pay for everything I need. I'm not going to go to the Caribbean anytime soon, but if the job's right, I'll prove to them that I'm worth more than that so I can go to the Caribbean. But you have to be in touch with the kind of money that you're looking for. And if you take less money than that, so many times as we get older, one of the challenges that you have is you've made a lot of money. Some people have made a lot of money, so they assume they can't afford you. And, you have to sometimes educate the person interviewing you. Money is very seldom the reason people leave their work. Very seldom. It's the lack of leadership. It's the lack of opportunity to grow. That's usually, or just the environment in general. But money is usually 2 or 3 down the line on why people leave a company. However, you're going to leave a company if it doesn't cover your nut, if it doesn't cover your house payment, it doesn't feed your family, and it doesn't feed you and take care of the things that make you feel secure, it's not going to work. And that's one of the reasons they ask you that, because they know, if you say, this is what I need, but I would like to be paid based on at least what the job description demands. And they've got all these HR charts and everything that show what job descriptions and experience and all that. They have formulas as to what you should be paid for that position. And as somebody looking for a job, you can look up and pretty well figure out what those numbers should be also. However, down the road, the next step with that, and I'm not going to get into it much right now, but down the road, there's a great opportunity to talk about salary. And that's if you've done those. Everyone is interesting. Everyone here is asking me questions because I brought it to can they afford you? You're missing the part of creating value. And if you create the value in yourself, then, and you've done it well, then the salary thing should be much easier. And so they've met your base needs and they've given you more. They've offered you maybe what you're making now, which you were happy with, but you had hoped to make a little bit more because the job takes on more responsibility. You ask them about it. You say, yeah, that I can work for that, but I was really thinking that it would probably pay better than this. Is there any chance? I mean, I was really hoping for $65,000 a year, whatever the number is, $35,000. Well, I'm sorry, you're at the high end of the pay scale. I mean, based on this job description, you're at the high end there. All right, is there a sign-on bonus?
What?
Sign-on bonus. Is there a sign-on bonus? I mean, because again, the assumption here is that you've created such a value in yourself.
Would they just give you money up front?
Yeah.
As soon as you get the job? Like 10,000 right away?
I can, everyone has sign-on bonuses. You have to ask for them. I have yet to find a company that said, unless it's a tiny company, but they all have sign-on.
Basically.
Yeah, they all have sign-on bonuses. They expect you to ask for a sign-on bonus. They expect you to ask for more money too, by the way. They all hold money back. The bigger companies all hold money back. They expect you to ask for more money.
But would they rather have you not versus somebody who does? Like, would it look better if you didn't? Like, maybe?
Why?
a third?
Going back to the steps. Yes, if you realize if everything they're looking for, you've missed some of those things, and you're not the perfect candidate, you're not the candidate on steroids, and you'll sense that in the interview. But if you're there, then you shouldn't. You probably don't want to ask for more money if you recognize that maybe you're not their ideal candidate.
But if you are, then you should.
Always. Why not? Why would they? If they thought you were the best candidate they've interviewed, why wouldn't they be willing to pay you a little bit more to make sure you come on board with them? Especially one of the reasons. By the way, I wanted to talk about that whole thing of if you don't have a job, you're going to have a tough time finding a job and how to handle that on LinkedIn. There's some truth to that, but it's primarily when you're working. When I was a headhunter doing executive search, my clients expected me to find people that were gainfully employed because they felt they could post an ad and find a lot of people looking for a job. The reason they like people that are gainfully employed is that it represents to them you're willing. If a recruiter calls you up and says, hey, I've heard a lot about you. I've been looking at you on LinkedIn. I've talked to a couple of people that know you. You're somebody we would really like to have in our company. And your answer to me is, I'm sorry, I'm really happy where I am. As a recruiter, I'm thrilled to death that you say that, because now I'm really going to go after you. Because for my client, they would much rather have somebody that loves the job they're in consider going to work for them, because if you do make that decision to make the change, there are two things going in their favor. One, you really looked at this job as not just a job, but a better opportunity because you're happy where you are. Number two, just from your peer pressure and your family pressure, you had a great job you loved, and you're going to be much more committed to make the new job work, or you look like a fool. I mean, there's two factors going there. You're going to give the new job much more of a chance because you gave up a job you loved. Did you have a question?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm just listening to what you were saying, trying to understand.
Yeah.
About the value, you said you need to create value, that we were missing that part of what you were explaining. Can you elaborate more on that?
Well, that would depend on the job description, and I'm just saying there are a couple of key pieces that they say, wow, you're the kind of person we're looking for, but boy, I wish you had more experience in this. That's one of those little signs. And if you've done an inventory and you know you don't have that, there's no sense in lying about it. It just means that you're missing a piece, but they're still interested in you. Okay? That's all. But it does negate your ability to negotiate for salary to some degree, because if they do offer you the job, they realize they're going to have to bring you up, make an investment and bring you up to speed in a couple of areas. Okay? That's the point on that. I can honestly tell you, because I was in corporate life forever, and again, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying it's different strokes for different folks. But I got out of corporate life because I got tired. I was successful, and I'd been successful beyond any dreams I ever had. But I was still relatively young, and I'm going, well, now what? I mean, it's kind of like been there, done that. What's next? And I wanted to go into a whole different career field. And so I found that at the time about the only way I was going to be able to do that was start my own business, which I did, and took me into a whole new area. But when I became when I got into executive recruiting, I was one of those guys. First, I'd never sign a contract with a company unless I was going to deal with a hiring manager and not HR. I did not want to have to deal with that screening process. Secondly, I would present, most of the candidates I presented might have half of what was on the job description, sometimes no experience in the industry, but their skills were so transferable. And I would, if I knew the candidate could do the job, I would present them to the decision maker and say, well, I'm looking at the resume here, Larry. Why should I interview them? Because they're probably one of the better candidates you'll have a chance to interview. But I don't see anything on here that I told you I want in terms of a background. No, they're going to bring a whole new set of disciplines that will help your business grow immensely. They have a different background that complements your business, and it's going to be a yin and yang. They're going to challenge you to go in new ways. And I was very successful at that. I mean, I had some companies that I couldn't work with at all, and other companies companies put me on a retainer because they felt it was cheaper than paying my fees. And they put me on a retainer, and I'd be collecting a check every month whether they had me looking for somebody or not. Because when they did, they knew I would find this unusual talent. And I'm addicted to that whole process. You can't, if we were to meet in a social situation or having cocktails or something, I would immediately start talking to you about what gets you excited about work. I mean, that's just the way my mind works. It's probably been 40 years where I've had cocktails and said, what's your sign? What's your S? I mean, I want to know. I love talking to people because then my mind immediately goes, geez, I know this person, I know that person. I don't do executive search anymore, but still a lot of my old clients and friends will ask me to send referrals to them. And with our timing getting off today, I had a couple of HR people that were going to come in here, and they have jobs available now. They were looking for people, and it's a big cross section of jobs. But again, for those of you, if you want to send resumes to me, I forward them to people that I know are looking for jobs all the time. So back to how do you find it? It's doing you do your self-inventory, you do an inventory of the company, you learn the company inside out, you know the company that you're going to interview with better than probably the person interviewing you knows. You can give them all the marketing trends, what's been going on, everything about the company. If you really want to have fun and you feel very secure and like you have, you can handle, you like the excitement, the coolest jobs, if you're entrepreneurial and think outside the box, are small to medium-sized companies. Small to medium-sized companies, in most cases, if you're a little bit older, will really see you as a value. There's a lot of value that you bring when you're over 50 or over 60 for a small to medium-sized company, if you've stayed active and if you've stayed up to date. I mean, if you've been out there and amongst them, you can offer a real value. The other topic that came up is it's not good to be unemployed. Well, there's a way to get around that he didn't mention, and that is you can become an independent contractor. You can list yourself as an independent contractor. And as an independent contractor, you're always employed, providing you can find a client. Jeff's an independent contractor. I'm an independent contractor. The other thing that you can do, and it doesn't cost much, is form an S corporation. And if you're an S corporation and you have some talents, whether it's coaching teenagers or whatever it is, where you can generate a little bit of income, you can show that you're currently employed. Because you are. It's that simple. So there are several ways around that. But sometimes when you talk about LinkedIn, I'm just shocked at how many young people in particular that I'm coaching that are clients of mine that are actually paying me good money to help them with their career are not on LinkedIn. And they go, I said, are you on LinkedIn? No, I don't like Facebook. Okay. All right. Facebook is good too, It's obviously become a better way to find a job because all the young people are leaving it. So there are too many old people on there, Younger people have gone on to other systems. So Facebook is good, but LinkedIn is your career. I mean, it's a great way to rocket your career. I've learned so much from Jeff, and it's because he's a lot older than me, but I have learned so much from Jeff to my detriment because I don't fight technology, but I'm not on the cutting edge. I don't embrace it. And he's pointing out all these different things in terms of joining groups and the things that you can do on LinkedIn. I'm signing up for all of them, and I'm contributing to the blogs, and I'm expressing my opinion on certain topics. And all of a sudden, I just get buried in responses. I mean, buried. You can't believe what happens to you if you halfway know what you're talking about.
Invitations to connect from other parts of the country.
Yeah. Unfortunately, so many of them come from India and Russia. But
yeah. Now, I don't know, nor...
Does that go on your spam folder or something?
Excuse me?
Does that go in your spam folder when you get from other...
Well, it doesn't pick and choose. No, it doesn't pick and choose if you're on LinkedIn and you don't, if you've not tagged somebody as, But the fun way to still do it is to be an entrepreneur and go out and find the job, have fun. Look at you. If you're looking for a job, you've got a great smile, you look professional. If you can say something to me as to why you would fit in with my company and knew why you wanted to work there, I would have to talk to you, whether I was looking for someone or not. The fact that you had enough enthusiasm and confidence to come in to meet the decision maker, especially if I'm not looking for anyone. I mean, I would be all, if I couldn't hire you, I would be all through my company. I would be going to everyone. Man, I got this great lady that really wants to work here. And, Half of our people don't. So, you know. Yeah. Anyway, and the age thing, you can't overcome it. You just can't beat it.
The obstacles.
I just went through my 4th interview for a company, and I got down. I was in the last 2, and I realized halfway through the interview process that the biggest obstacle was going to be my age. My competitor was 59. I'm 74, and so instead of asking me, where do you see yourself in 5 years, they said, where do you see yourself in 2 years? So then I knew, okay, well, yeah, hopefully above the ground, but but you realize, I mean, that kind of was a wake-up call for me, because I've always felt that I was viable and could do anything. But if they're going to invest in you, they want to think that you're going to be around for 3 or 4 or 5 years. They want to have some kind of a comfortable feeling about that. So I went back to them after they turned me down and presented an independent contracting contract to them. So, there's a lot of ways to do it.